Hey Richard, how are you?
Hi, Miss. How are you? I'm great.
I'm doing well. Thanks for jumping on the line over a weekend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I saw your film. Uh Very interesting, very beautifully shot.
Thank,
And you should be very proud of yourself. I know I would.
thank
Um
you.
I'll just get started from right from the beginning. Ashley Avis, how did you get your start as a filmmaker?
I knew I always wanted to write from a very young age. I read a lot of poetry and I thought when I was maybe 10, 12 years old that I'd become a novelist or go into sci-fi fiction or poetry. And then I started dabbling in journalism at a younger age. I ended up going to the Poynter Institute of Journalism and then went to New York City. And that was after a childhood of being around the world of horses. So when I went to Manhattan, I worked as a journalist, realized that wasn't quite it, and then I started reading screenplays after an internship at a production company. And that completely changed my whole world because I felt like screenplays are like poetry. You have such a limited space to write something extremely beautiful and to evoke such emotion and such visualization. And so I started writing my own screenplays behind my economics books. And I ended up moving to Los Angeles after saving up some money, working a bunch of different odd jobs. And I produced my first spec pilot at 22. And that was really the window into realizing that I also wanted to direct.
And who are some of your greatest inspirations in filmmaking?
Terrence Malick, Days of Heaven. I'd love to shoot everything at that golden hour. Certainly Robert Redford and some of the work he's done. Films like Dances with Wolves have been extremely impactful. Out of Africa, and so those are some of the ones that have really shaped the direction that I've wanted to go into my career. A river runs through it. A lot of natural light. I've always wanted to be. Even as a young person, I was always out in the woods and climbing trees and diving into the ocean. And a lot of the stories that I'm very attracted to take place in the natural world.
So I saw your film. I saw the documentary. It was really it was touching. I
Thank
gotta
you.
admit, it was very touching. Um, Especially for horse lovers, I guess. Um, and I can only imagine, like, obviously going through the motions of being frustrated, trying to help horses, trying to be a social activist. What was going through your mind when you were making this documentary?
It really changed and morphed as the journey found us and kind of took us to the place it wanted to go. It was a really interesting process because my producing partner and is my also my husband, and my younger brother is a producer as well. So it was very much a small crew family affair passion project. And when we so the way that this documentary even evolved was because my fourth feature film was my first studio opportunity, which was writing and directing Black Beauty, and I ended up editing that film as well. And I've been editing my own work for about 15 years, but that was my first big opportunity to edit a feature too. And so it was special in many ways, particularly given I grew up with that novel with Anna Sewell's Black Beauty. So it was very full circle with both my great love of horses as well as my career passion. So with Black Beauty, I was told by the producers they wanted to set it in the States and they wanted to modernize the story for audiences of today. And so, in trying to authentically honor why Anna Sewell wrote the very timeless story, which is still one of the most read novels today, I went back to understand why she wrote the novel. And I discovered she was crippled as a child, and that gave way to her very unique love and understanding of horses back in a time when they were used as tools. And most people didn't look at horses as empathetic, intelligent beings. And her very brave choice to write Black Beauty from a first person perspective not only created this massive worldwide sensation that has gone on long after she passed away, but Black Beauty really started revolutionizing our understanding of horse and animal empathy. And so when I read that back in 2017, I thought if we could find a modern day parallel to Black Beauty, and if the film's successful, maybe we could do what Anna Sewell did, and maybe we could help horses that need help today. And so I started researching modern day issues, and I came across the plight of wild horses. And I was hit with such a sense of guilt that as a horse person in my youth, I didn't know that this was going on. And so I immediately, in addition to incorporating that theme into Black Beauty, I started talking to people about it. And I realized how few people knew, and I realized how few people in the equestrian community knew. And so in doing this deep dive into what was going on and why, I ended up with, along with Ed, my husband, we ended up raising a tiny bit of money to go out and film in Utah, Wyoming, and Nevada so that we could incorporate real wild horse footage into Black Beauty, because we were shooting the film in South Africa for the States because of tax credits and wonderful crews and a bunch of reasons. But that authenticity was really important to me because wild horses look very different than domestic horses. They interact differently. Their family dynamics are so different. And so we not only got to experience the beauty of those horses and their families in the wild, but then we attended our first roundup. And seeing that in person, and we tried so hard to elicit the feelings and the terror and the sounds and the unjustness in our documentary, but there's really nothing like seeing one in person, and I hope most people don't ever have to. But my heart broken away that it never has. And we rescued 2 horses from that first roundup, which is Triple B in the documentary. And Ed and I decided to keep going. And over the course of 5 years, we cobbled together the funds to create the documentary. We went out and we shot when we had the money to. We had an amazing, dedicated crew that was willing to hike miles into the wilderness and find the horses. And so it really evolved along the way. And at first, we thought we were going to create kind of an indie Planet Earth with a narrator. That was always the way that I was shaping my outlines, and everything changes over time. But it was pretty extraordinary how it changed, because as we went along and as we encountered more of the Bureau of Land Management and this repetitive narrative that wild horses are starving, they're overpopulated, we're rounding them up for their own good, the more we heard that, and as a narrative director, the more I heard this script being spouted by these publicists in all of these different states saying literally the same thing, we started uncovering more of the corruption. And with the background in journalism, I never wanted the film to become personal. It wasn't supposed to, but you see injustice happening over and over and over. And eventually we just got bolder. And the one day at the Anarchy Roundup where there was just so much that they were mispurporting. There was so much disinformation. I finally turned to everybody that was there at that roundup and asked everyone with a camera to walk up and start questioning Gus War with me. And a lot of people did. And that was the turning point into the documentary becoming more journalistic.
Right, and you directed the remake of Black Beauty with Kate Winslet.
I did, yeah.
I was about to watch that film, but I saw it was removed from Disney Plus for some reason.
It was, I know, and it was doing really well. I was getting messages from children around the world for years. So we're hoping, they just announced that they've got a new deal with Netflix just a few days ago, that they're going to be, I guess, allowing some content to go onto Netflix. So we're really hoping, because not only, it's, as a filmmaker, you want your work to be able to live forever, but in particular with Black Beauty, given a lot of the work that I do with our nonprofit is through children, and I often compare and contrast Black Beauty with our documentary. I have a lot, there's a lot that is tied to Black Beauty with educating children about those wonderful messages. So that's the main reason that I really hope the film comes back. So hopefully it will.
Okay, yeah. And do you have any upcoming projects?
I do. I'm writing and directing a reimagining of City of Angels, the classic Wim Wenders film for Warner Brothers, for Charles Roven, who produced Oppenheimer, Rebecca Steele Roven Oakley, his daughter, and Paul Perez. And then I've got another project about wolves that hasn't been announced yet, but is a narrative version in some ways to our documentary. And that's going to be a pretty big studio project that also has, it's kind of like The Revenant with wolves in some ways, given a lot of it is out in nature. But what's beautiful about that story is that it also has a message behind it. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you enjoy as a filmmaker? What do you enjoy most about your work, and what do you enjoy the least?
That's evolved over time as well. I love going out into the wild and being able to capture moments that perhaps are unplanned. I think that those unexpected moments are some of the most exciting, when an actor has an idea and there's something that just works, and a day is kind of touched by that unexpected magic. What I like least definitely is money. I hate talking about money, but that's also a big part of, I produce as well, so it's a big part of the conversation always. But I think that it's obviously, money is a part of every single production, but being able to be conscious of it, and working with producers, working versus working against producers is a big important element of being a director. People hopefully want to work with as well. But yeah, definitely least like is money.
So, and what do you hope to have your career in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope that City of Angels goes and is a massive, sweeping, epic love story that inspires people to believe in love. I think we need beautiful stories and uplifting stories, especially right now. And that's always been the type of film or story or article that I've always wanted to pursue earlier in my career as a journalist. I think we do need those feel good, beautiful stories. So I'm very excited about that project. And then I hope in the next 5 years, our Wolf project also goes and helps to influence a much needed change with the understanding of wolves and their place in our ecosystem, their critical place in our ecosystem in a time when in Colorado, they're being reintroduced for the first time in nearly a century, which is spectacular and very progressive of Colorado. But at the same time, in the Rockies, they're being hunted with virtually no limit using traps and aerial gunning and puppies being bombed in their dens. All of that's legal. That kind of animal cruelty needs to be stopped in our modern day. So I really hope that our storytelling through the choice of some of our projects really helps change the world. And I mean that very sincerely, because I do think that if you're fortunate enough to have a platform where your work is being seen by a lot of people, storytelling is a responsibility. And that responsibility to me means trying to help shape and improve our wild world.
And any advice for other filmmakers?
Latch on to something you really believe in and be fearless. I feel like it's kind of like trying to hold on to a tornado sometimes with a film. There's so many stages to it, and trying to, as you're a multi-hyphenate as well. I've read about your career, and it's just
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
I have, yeah, and it's and so I'm guessing, doing different things, there are different stages to a production, and sometimes it feels like everything is going so beautifully, and then at other points it's really hard to hang on. But I think if you really truly fiercely believe in something, you'll find a way to hang on even on those darker days. And at the end of it, hopefully you come out with, blue skies or,
Yeah.
or at least painted ones. And so my advice would be to be fearless and really pursue something that you're passionate about, because film, seeing a feature film through takes years usually.